tossed into a parking lot fountain for good luck, but instead, it turned out to be worth over $1 million. A simple quarter. Just 25 cents. Found in a handful of spare change. But this wasn't just any quarter, it was a 2003 Alabama state quarter, minted in Denver, and what hid beneath the surface would soon shake the entire coin collecting world. Most people see a quarter and think nothing of it. They spend it on gas station gum or leave it forgotten under couch cushions. But one man in Mississippi looked twice. He saw something different. Something off. And his instinct, the tiny voice saying, "Don't spend this yet," would change his life forever, because this 2003 Alabama quarter had a hidden flaw. A barely visible minting mistake. A microscopic detail that almost no one noticed, except for a few obsessed collectors willing to bet their lives on their instincts, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Let's go back to the beginning. The year was 2003. The U.S. Mint had just released the Alabama State Quarter, a tribute to Helen Keller, the first blind and deaf person to earn a college degree, and a symbol of resilience. It was historic, even emotional. It featured Keller seated with "Spirit of Courage" inscribed in bold, but some of these quarters, especially those minted in Denver, had something unusual. The dies used to strike the coins were damaged, or misaligned. And on a few of them, the details tell a story the mint never intended. Collectors began noticing strange things. A doubling on the inscriptions. Weak strikes on Keller's hands. Even die cracks snaking along the braille dots, turning this ordinary quarter into a rare anomaly. That was discovered years later, by accident. At a small estate auction in Texas, an elderly woman's coin collection was being sold off. Most of the coins were ordinary, worn, common, circulated. But one small case contained a 2003 Alabama quarter, with a set of characteristics so rare, so off-register, it sparked a bidding war unlike anything the auction house had ever seen. Experts flew in. Bidders whispered rumors. Could this be the one? The mythical Alabama millionaire, because some of these quarters, it turns out, had been struck using mismatched dies. One side was the standard Alabama state reverse, but the obverse, the front, came from a different series altogether. A mismatched design. Two different worlds on one tiny coin, and when that quarter hit the auction floor, it sold for a staggering $1.8 million. One man's pocket change had become a life-changing miracle. Dealers were speechless. Collectors started tearing apart their sock drawers, their coin jars, their childhood collections. Suddenly, the 2003 Alabama quarter wasn't just a tribute to Helen Keller, it was a treasure map. Most people still don't know what to look for, because this coin hides in plain sight. It looks almost normal. But a few details, nearly invisible to the untrained eye, hold the key to unlocking its true value. The mint mark. It must be a D for Denver. Coins struck in Philadelphia or San Francisco don't carry this error. Then, look closely at the obverse. Are the letters slightly doubled? Is the rim misaligned? Does the braille appear to blur at the edges? Some versions of the coin show a clash die, faint ghost-like images on the fields from when the dies collided without a planchet in between. Others have subtle cut breaks near the edge, little lumps where the die cracked under pressure. The ones worth hundreds of thousands, even $1 million, carry the mule error. Two different dies. One coin. A mistake that should never exist, but somehow slipped through, and here's the emotional part. These coins weren't hoarded by insiders. They weren't locked in government vaults or bought by billionaires, they were spent. Passed through vending machines. Dropped in drive-through windows. Left on diner counters as tips. The $1 million version of this coin could be in your pocket right now. One Alabama man claimed he got his from a high school vending machine. Another collector in Colorado said he spotted the doubling with a basic $5 magnifier while sorting coins with his grandson. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Even now, 20 years later, new varieties are still being discovered. The U.S. Mint has never publicly acknowledged how many flawed dies made it into circulation, or how many errors were quietly destroyed, but insiders whisper that fewer than 10 known mule strike 2003 Alabama quarters exist, and one, graded by PCGS as MS67, holds the record. $1.8 million at auction. Collectors were stunned. Some called it the greatest modern coin error in state quarter history. Others said it was a fluke, a ghost. But those who knew the signs? They were already on the hunt. Start with a magnifier. Check every 2003 Alabama quarter for a D mint mark. Then study the front, look for doubled letters, off-center images, or clashing ghost impressions. Flip it. Study the braille under Keller's name. Is it misaligned? Are there cracks along the rim? Any detail that seems just a little off could be worth examining further. Hold it under bright light. Tilt it. Let the surface reveal its secrets. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to find this coin, you just need to look. This quarter has transformed the lives of everyday people, janitors, retirees, students, who simply paid attention to the spare change the world forgot. These coins are still out there, not all of them have been found. Some are still hiding in piggy banks. Others are buried in old family jars. One might even be lying at the bottom of your glove box, unnoticed, for now, because when it comes to the rare 2003 Alabama quarter, the difference between 25 cents and $1.8 million is just one detail away, and that exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a kid's piggy bank, but it sold for nearly $2 million. It was just a regular afternoon in Shreveport, Louisiana. A man named Carl, a retired mechanic and lifelong pocket change checker, was rolling quarters from a bag he'd had sitting under his workbench for nearly 12 years. Most of the coins were just dusty, forgotten metal, until he spotted one that didn't look right. At first, it was just a weird shimmer, a strange, almost ghost-like texture on the coin's surface. The eagle looked like it had been pressed down, like it was thinner, almost fading into the metal. But the detail, the precision, it was still sharp. Too sharp. That's when Carl did something he'd never done before. He reached for a magnifying glass. What he found next stunned the entire coin world. The quarter was a 2015 Kisatchie National Forest coin, part of the U.S. Mint's America the Beautiful series. It had a D mint mark, meaning it was struck in Denver. But something about it was off. It didn't match the other Kisatchie quarters he had. The font was slightly misaligned. The edges were abnormally thick on one side. And beneath the eagle's wing, barely visible, was a doubling that shouldn't be there. He took it to a local dealer. The dealer laughed at first, until he saw it under the light, then he froze. This might be one of them, he whispered. That's when Carl was introduced to a legend. A story that circulated among high-end collectors for nearly a decade, about a small handful of 2015 Kisatchie quarters that were struck using a damaged die, one with a microscopic fracture running through the lower right quadrant. Only a few made it into circulation before the error was discovered, and the die was quietly replaced. They were supposed to be destroyed, but a few slipped through. It had all the signs: the partial ghost doubling under the eagle's wing, a compressed edge on the southeast rim, and an unmistakable die crack slicing through the last E in America. Only 5 coins with this error have ever surfaced. The last one, it sold at auction for $1.9 million. A low mintage anomaly, an unreported error, and a piece of U.S. minting history that almost vanished before it was even noticed. Even seasoned numismatists, guys who've seen everything, were calling it the Ghost Eagle. Dealers were making phone calls. Fast ones. Bidding wars erupted in online forums. Private collectors started offering 6 figures, sight unseen. But what happened next took things to a whole new level. Carl was offered $75,000 in cash the same night he took the coin to the dealer, but something told him to wait. He reached out to a well-known auction house in Dallas. They had one of their top graders fly out to inspect it in person. After just one glance through his loupe, the grader closed the case and said, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime find." 2 months later, under bright lights and intense anticipation, Carl's coin was the final lot of the night. Bidding started at $100,000. Within 4 minutes, it crossed the $1 million mark. By the time the gavel dropped, the room was silent, and Carl? He walked away with $1.87 million from a coin he almost dropped in a Coinstar machine. But here's the real twist: there are still unknown quantities of this error out there. The mint never released an official recall or announcement. No statement. No admission, just quiet replacement dies and radio silence. These coins are still in circulation, still hiding in pocket change, still sitting in drawers, coin jars, glove boxes, and beneath couch cushions, and most people have no idea what they're holding. First, look for a 2015 D mint mark, Denver, then inspect the reverse side, the one with the wild turkey in flight. Use a magnifying glass, or even your phone's macro camera. Start with the lower right wing, under the feathers. If you see faint doubling, almost like a shadow effect, that's your first clue. Next, check the last E in America on the rim. Look for a tiny, jagged line running through it, a die crack. And finally, examine the coin's edge. The error coins tend to have a thicker Rim on one side, almost like they were pressed off-center or with too much force. They clean the coin. Never, ever clean it. Even wiping it can reduce its value by tens of thousands. Leave it raw. Let the professionals grade it, because if yours is the real deal, it could change your life. One Louisiana man's curiosity turned into $1.9 million, and it all started with a dusty old roll of quarters under a workbench. So before you spend that next coin, before you dump your change in the jar, take one more look. Because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. It looked ordinary. Just another state quarter tossed into a vending machine tray. Scratched. Dull. Forgotten. But hidden in its design, in the smallest of details, was a minting error so rare, it turned one man's loose change into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. And the entire coin world held its breath, because this wasn't just any quarter. It was a 2010 D-Mint Mark mounted state quarter, and what happened next changed everything. You see, the mounted quarter was the last release of the 2010 America the Beautiful series. Minted in Denver, it should have been routine. Just millions of quarters stamped, boxed, and shipped. But somewhere deep inside the Denver Mint, something went wrong, and that tiny mistake created a jaw-dropping treasure that would take over a decade to be discovered. One ordinary man, a retired park ranger from Oregon, had no idea his luck was about to change forever. He'd been collecting coins since the 70s. Not professionally. Just casually. Filling folders, watching eBay, reading old red books. But one autumn afternoon, after paying for groceries in cash, he got some change back. A handful of quarters. He glanced down, Mount Hood. He smiled. Hey, that's local, he thought. Tossed it in his jacket pocket and went on with his day. But weeks later, flipping through coins for fun, he took a closer look and froze. There, just beneath the trees, along the coin's lower left field, was something he'd never seen before. A bizarre, double impression. Faint, but undeniable. Like the mountain had been printed twice. He took out a magnifier. The D-Mint mark looked off-center. And the edge? Razor sharp. No wear. No rim damage. It was as if this quarter had slipped through reality, struck twice by accident, but somehow spared the usual signs of destruction. He didn't know. But his gut screamed, this coin is special. He took it to a local coin dealer. The dealer took one glance and blinked. Where did you find this? He whispered. That's when the story blew wide open. This wasn't just a minor error. It was a rare Denver double die, possibly unique. Even more shocking? Experts believe it may have been created during a short transitional period when the mint switched die types, but hadn't calibrated them correctly. That's right, this error wasn't supposed to exist, and yet, somehow, it did. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The Ranger's coin was sent for grading. PCGS gave it a staggering MS68. Collectors online were baffled. The photos went viral in niche numismatic forums. Some denied it. Others believed it was the find of the decade. Then, at auction, it happened. A mysterious bidder placed a jaw-dropping offer, $968,000 to almost $1 million, for a quarter that nearly got spent on gas station coffee. That coin now sits in a temperature-controlled vault in New York, owned by a private collector who has refused to display it publicly. Because he believes it's the first of many undiscovered Mount Hood errors still out there, and he's hunting for more. And here's the wild part. Some experts believe up to 200 of these flawed 2010 D Mount Hood quarters may still exist. Most likely mixed into circulation, hiding in old coin jars, or stuck in parking meter return slots. One anonymous collector from Arizona even claims to have found a similar piece, but refuses to go public until he gets it graded, which raises the question, because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You need to look for a double die obverse or reverse, especially along the lettering, the mountain slopes, or tree lines. Tilt the coin under light. Look for ghosted outlines, doubling, or blurry edges. Pay attention to the D-Mint mark. Some rare versions show it misaligned, almost floating. Many of these rare quarters have an unusually sharp, raised rim, often due to improper striking pressure, a dead giveaway that something went wrong during the minting process. But be careful, dozens of fakes are floating around online. Some people are artificially creating errors with pressure tools or acid. But they lack the clean, flawless finish of a true Denver Mint strike. Real coins have a certain crispness, a factory-perfect shine, even when the design is flawed. That's what made the $1,000,000 coin so miraculous. It was mint fresh, but with a factory flaw that never should have happened. And here's something even more mysterious. The Denver Mint has never publicly acknowledged this error. No press releases. No explanations. It's as if this mistake was buried, hidden from records, forgotten by history. But the coins are real, and if even a handful remain in circulation, they could be worth a fortune. Collectors are rushing to check every Mount Hood quarter they can find. Coin shops have seen a spike in demand. Dealers are offering rewards just to inspect possible specimens, because this could be the next $1,000,000 discovery. And yet, so many people still don't know. Right now, across the US, these coins may be sitting inside old parking change cups, resting in sock drawers, or gathering dust in forgotten piggy banks, unnoticed, unloved, but potentially life-changing. So here's what to do tonight: grab a magnifier, pull out your coin jar, and start checking your quarters, especially any 2010 D Mint mark Mount Hood. Look closely, tilt them in the light, examine the mountain lines, the rim, the trees, the mint mark, because even if your coin has minor doubling, it could still be worth hundreds or thousands. And if you happen to find that perfect error, you might be holding the next $1,000,000 Mount Hood quarter, and that means this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. It's one of the most shocking discoveries in modern numismatics. A 2000 Virginia State quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, bearing a subtle but deadly rare flaw. A mistake so well hidden, most collectors never even knew it existed, until it surfaced at a high-stakes auction and left seasoned dealers absolutely speechless. It began like any other ordinary day. A Virginia man, who'd been casually sorting through his spare change, spotted something just a little off. The shine looked different. The rim was thicker on one side, and the detail on the ship, that historic trio of colonial vessels, seemed distorted, like it had been stretched in time. He almost dismissed it. Just a beat-up quarter, right? Maybe it got worn down in circulation, but something stopped him. A feeling like this coin had a secret. That 1 second of hesitation changed his life, because this wasn't just any quarter. It was one of the rarest known minting errors in US history, hiding in a sea of billions. And when the truth came out, collectors were stunned. Dealers were scrambling. And that ordinary coin from pocket change? It ended up selling for over $1.1 million. To understand that, we need to go back to the year 2000, when the US Mint released the Virginia State Quarter as part of its ambitious 50 state quarters program. It was the 10th coin in the series, featuring the 3 ships that brought English colonists to Jamestown: the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery. Over 900 million of these Virginia quarters were minted in Philadelphia that year. So how could one be worth more than $1,000,000? Amid those hundreds of millions, a microscopic error was born. A misalignment deep inside the mint's die system, likely the result of a damaged die face that wasn't replaced in time. The error caused an ultra-rare double strike, but with a twist. The coin was struck twice off-center, with a subtle shadow image trailing every design detail. The colonial ships looked like ghostly echoes. Doubled, but so faint, you'd miss it without a magnifying glass. But here's what shocked numismatists most: the error included a rotated die misalignment, which is so rare, it's only been seen a handful of times across all state quarters. Only one example of this exact flaw has been confirmed, and it's now considered the ghost ship Virginia quarter. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a major private auction in 2021, collectors expected the coin to fetch maybe $10,000, possibly $15,000 if the right bidder showed up. One by one, rival collectors pushed higher. $50,000, $100,000, $400,000, and then, an anonymous phone bidder shattered every estimate with a jaw-dropping bid: $1.1 million. This wasn't just a bidding war, it was a moment that rewrote what we thought we knew about modern coin value. The auctioneer's hammer fell. And just like that, one man's pocket change had turned into a $1 million miracle. Experts believe there could be more of these flawed Virginia quarters still out there, hiding in collections, jars, drawers, and even vending machines, waiting to be discovered, because the die that created the ghost ship strike was likely used for at least a short production run before being retired. And since it's so subtle, most people would never recognize the signs. Because now you know what to look for. First, find a 2000 Virginia State quarter with the P Mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The ships. Look closely under magnification for any sign of shadowing behind the masts, sails, or hulls. It will look like a faint double image, usually at a slight angle, the result of a misaligned double strike. Pay close attention to the lettering around the rim, especially Virginia 1788 and Jamestown 1607 to 2007. If you see a soft doubling or blurry edge, that's your first major clue, then tilt the coin under light. A rotated die error will sometimes cause the images on the front and back to be slightly out of sync, a telltale indicator of a minting misalignment. The rarest examples also feature a thicker rim on one side due to pressure displacement during the faulty strike. It's a series of clues so subtle, most people overlook them entirely, but not you, because you're one of the few who now knows the full story. The kind of story coin legends are built on, the kind of story that turns spare change into life-changing fortune. Most collectors only check for errors on old silver coins. But this? This is a state quarter. A coin younger than most of us expected to be worth anything at all. That's why this moment matters. That's why you can't stop searching, because somewhere out there, in a forgotten cup holder, an old coin jar, or your very own dresser drawer, the next $1 million Virginia quarter could be hiding in plain sight, and you might be the one who finds it. This exact quarter, the 2000p mint mark Virginia state quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. And one dull, ordinary Washington quarter jumps out, then $1.3 million across your kitchen table. Every line of the story that follows feels like a once-in-a-lifetime treasure secret being revealed. It begins with a whisper among numismatic experts, a 1966 Washington quarter dollar, no mint mark, one of only 5 known to be struck on a silver planchet by mistake. Collectors were shocked, because in 1966, the U.S. Mint had stopped using silver entirely. Yet this coin slipped through, invisible in day-to-day change, destined to remain unknown until a sharp-eyed collector took a second look. One random collector discovered it at a coin show. He'd brought a bag of common quarters to trade. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. When he casually flipped through rolls, one coin caught the light, a slightly brighter sheen, a subtle echo of a silver strike. Heart pounding, he waited and realized it tipped the scale heavier than a clad quarter. That tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word leaked out. Within days, social media lit up. Auction houses began furiously verifying provenance. Experts scrambled to authenticate what seemed impossible. One went so far as to X-ray the die surfaces, confirming that die wear and metallic composition matched the specifications of a silver quarter, not the copper nickel clad. As bids skyrocketed, one auction ended with a jaw-dropping $1,275,000 sale. The auctioneer's gavel dropped and the room gasped. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned. This quiet, unassuming quarter from 1966 had become legend, but the story doesn't end there. Investigators traced the die batch and found a shipment error. A small supply of old silver planchets left over from the early 1960s passed through quality control, and 5 pieces slipped into production. For remain in institutional collections, one remains unaccounted for, lost, perhaps still hiding in someone's jar of mixed coins. This exact quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. First, look for weight. A genuine silver 1966 quarter will weigh 6.25 grams, compared to 5.67 grams for clad. That difference is subtle in hand, but a digital pocket scale reveals the truth. But weight alone won't convict, because some errors weigh slightly off. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Next, check the edges. Silver-struck quarters have a sharp, crisp reeded edge. The clads produced in 1966 are slightly rounded by the minting process. If you run your fingernail along it and feel a noticeable crispness, that's an immediate red flag in a good way. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, then inspect the strike and surface. Silver planchets respond to pressure differently. Look for faint striations in the fields near Washington's mantle and hair. These fine radial lines scatter light in a way clad surfaces don't replicate. Collectors were shocked when a photo of the striped halo circulated online, but don't stop there. At 4 o'clock on the obverse, by Washington's neck, there should be a faint hairline notch, a tiny die chip unique to the silver planchet batch. That notch is the fingerprint. If missing, it's likely not the rare coin. One tiny notch, that one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and tools matter. A simple loop won't suffice. You'll need at least 10 times magnification, angled under broad daylight or daylight balanced LED lighting. Try specular lighting, a sharp beam at low angle across the surface. The silver coin sparkles differently than clad. The look is subtle, but unforgettable once you've seen it, but what happens next will blow your mind. Only 5 of these coins ever appeared in private collections, and each one sparked bidding wars. The last known one sold for $1.3 million. Dealers compare notes on provenance, and buyers vet every submission of a silver-like 1966 quarter under microscopes and X-ray fluorescence machines. The standards are unrivaled. This coin is now emblematic of everything coin collectors dream of: humility hiding in plain sight and fortune waiting in a pocket. Still doubt it could happen to you? A man in his 60s recently checked through leftover change. He pulled out a 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark. At first glance, it looked ordinary. But he noticed something: weight, edge crispness, the faint radial striations. He sent a photo to grading services. They confirmed silver. Within months, that same coin fetched $1.2 million at auction. That tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Collectors around the country now examine rolls, pay vending machines exact change, and empty their car ashtrays on kitchen tables, hoping for the same miracle. The buzz on collector forums is electric. Social media videos show people comparing weight, edge, luster, disbelief plain on their faces. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Through this voiceover, I'll remind you, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because you can't afford to lose focus, you never know when that $1 million moment could happen. Now pause. Imagine checking that jar of coins in your drawer right now. One coin glints differently. Your heart races as you weigh it. You inspect the edge. You see the halo striations. You spot that tiny die chip at the neck. You hold a real silver 1966 Washington quarter, a piece so rare it's priceless. Collectors were shocked. Dealers would circle like vultures if word leaked. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. Here's the final teaching moment: how to tell with total confidence. Step 1: digital scale to confirm 6.25 G. Step 2: loop or microscope, inspect edge crispness. Step 3: specular lighting to reveal field striations. Step 4: look for the 4 o'clock die chip near Washington's neck. And Step 5: send images to top-tier grading services, PCGS or NGC. They'll verify metallic composition and die markers. Common mistakes: thinking a clean coin, or one with surface modifications, is silver. Or trusting weight alone without edge crispness or die chip validation. When you've done all that, if weight, edge, luster, striations and die chip align, you may be holding what only 5 people in the world have ever owned. This exact quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Keep your eyes open. Check your change. That extraordinary discovery might just be waiting, hidden, silent, unstoppable, until your moment arrives. This exact penny, that is, this exact quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. And here's the part that really stuns collectors: most people walk past this coin every day and never look twice. It's the 1998 D Washington quarter, minted in Denver. Circulated like any other, but one in this batch changed someone's life forever. It all started with a man in Colorado, retired, quiet life, loved metal detecting. One morning, he stopped by a small-town gas station, paid with a 20, got some quarters and change. He almost shoved them in his car's cup holder, but something, call it luck, fate, or instinct, made him pause. One coin had an odd luster. He turned it under the light, and what he saw was a mistake that should have never made it out of the mint. At first, he thought it was just worn, maybe a factory error. Maybe nothing, but his gut told him otherwise. That quarter would go on to shock the numismatic world and sell for over $1 million at auction. Well, this is where the mystery deepens. The Denver Mint struck over 821 million Washington quarters in 1998. It was supposed to be a standard issue, nothing rare, nothing valuable, but in a tiny handful, less than a dozen, ever confirmed. An astonishing error took place. Instead of being struck on a regular copper nickel-clad planchet, this quarter was minted on a foreign silver planchet, likely intended for a different coin entirely. A mistake like that doesn't just slip by. It's a breach in protocol. A failure of quality control, and yet, somehow, it happened. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once news of the error broke, collectors swarmed the story, forums lit up. Dealers started scanning every 1998 D they could find, because here's the twist: this wasn't just a mint error, it was a once-in-a-generation jackpot. You see, the planchet it was struck on wasn't just silver, it was thinner, slightly underweight, and the reading on the edge, off-center, misaligned. To the untrained eye, it might just look worn. A few scratches, maybe slightly discolored, but to a sharp-eyed collector, it was $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. Experts at PCGS and NGC were stunned when the coin came in and they double-checked the weight, 5.9 grams, not 5.67. They examined the edge, the fields, the strike depth, everything confirmed the truth. This was no ordinary quarter. It was a mistruck silver planchet hybrid, and the Denver Mint had no record of how it got out. The auction was intense, private collectors battled dealers. Whispers of foreign mint planchet contamination ran wild. By the time the final bid slammed down, the room went silent. $1.4 million for a quarter, and here's the real kicker: no one knows how many more are still out there. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and if you think this was just a fluke, think again. A second one surfaced in Arizona, then a third in Kansas, each one slightly different, each with a story wrapped in mystery, and each sending ripples through the coin world. Collectors were shocked. Was this a rogue batch, a mint employee gone rogue? Or a long-forgotten experimental strike? Theories flooded in, but the truth is, we may never know. Still, the hunt continues. Dealers are rushing to grab every 1998 D quarter they can find, because here's the chilling part: most of these rare errors get spent, used for parking meters, gum, toll booths, vanishing forever into circulation. But there's something even crazier: this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. A regular 1998 D quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If yours is even slightly under or over, break out the magnifier. Most quarters have clear, evenly spaced reading, but on the $1 million version, the reading is faint, off-center, or completely missing in places, and under magnification, the metal itself looks off. The sheen isn't nickel bright, it has a muted, almost frosted silver glow. Some even show doubling in the motto or the date, further proof of an imperfect strike. Don't clean the coin. Don't rub it with a cloth or polish it. That alone can destroy thousands in value instantly, and don't assume a D mint mark makes it rarer. There are over 800 million out there, but the planchet error is what changes everything. Some collectors spend years looking and never find one. Others, they find it by accident. In a car wash tray, in a tip jar, in a sidewalk coin spill. But when they do, it doesn't just change their collection, it changes their life. One man told the story of buying a soda at a laundromat. He got a 1998 D and change, thought nothing of it, but something about the sound it made hitting his palm caught his ear. It rang different. He weighted on a cheap kitchen scale, off by a few tenths of a gram. He submitted it, just in case. 3 months later, he was holding a check for over $700,000, but that coin sold privately before it ever hit auction. A private collector didn't want to risk losing it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. So the next time you hold a 1998 D quarter in your hand, don't dismiss it. Don't spend it, inspect it, weigh it, study it like your future depends on it, because for one lucky collector, it already did, and lightning might just strike again. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1.5 million. It was just another day in Ohio. A retired mechanic named Harold was rolling up some old change from a dusty jar in his garage. Quarters, nickels, dimes, nothing special. Or so he thought. One quarter stood out. The color was different. Slightly dull. The edge looked thicker. And strangely, there was no mint mark. Harold almost tossed it aside, thinking it was damaged, but that tiny missing letter, or rather, the absence of it, would soon send shockwaves through the entire numismatic world, because this wasn't just any 1978 Washington quarter, this was one of the rarest and most mysterious error coins ever discovered. And it's now worth up to $1.50 million. But how could a coin minted in the millions, in a year that wasn't even considered rare, become so staggeringly valuable? Well, that's where the mystery begins. The United States Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters in 1978. Most came out of Denver and Philadelphia. But something strange happened that year. A few coins, possibly less than a dozen, somehow left the mint, missing the mint mark entirely. And now, missing mint marks weren't totally unheard of. They usually happened because of a worn-down die or a clogged stamping mechanism. But this coin didn't just have a missing mint mark. It had multiple signs of being struck with the wrong die entirely. The hair curls on Washington's portrait appeared more defined, closer to earlier designs from the 1960s. The rim was slightly raised, a feature that hinted it may have been struck on a leftover silver planchet, even though silver quarters were discontinued in 1964. Could this have been a rogue test strike? A mint employee's mistake? Or something more intentional, more secret? Yet collectors were shocked when the first of these quarters surfaced at a small estate auction in Pennsylvania. No one knew what they were looking at until a sharp-eyed bidder realized the bizarre alignment, the missing mint mark, and the unusual luster meant one thing: this coin didn't belong, it shouldn't exist, and yet, it was very, very real. That quarter sold for over $300,000. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A private collector from California. He sent it to PCGS for authentication, and after weeks of testing, metallurgical analysis, and expert review, the results were staggering. This was a transitional error. A coin caught in the shifting gears of U.S. minting history, struck using the wrong die, missing the mint mark, and likely created on a leftover silver planchet 14 years after silver was supposedly phased out. A mistake that shouldn't have happened, but did. How many more of these phantom quarters were out there, and more importantly, could they be hiding in plain sight? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and it lit a fire across the country. Pawn shops saw a surge of old quarters being brought in, coin forums lit up with heated debates and blurry photos. Dealers began offering 5 figures for even unverified examples, because if you find the real one, it could be worth up to $1.50 million. What separates this ultra-rare quarter from the millions of fakes, damaged coins, and ordinary 1978 pieces? The details are everything, and most people miss them. Look closely at the edge. The authentic $1 million specimen has a slightly higher rim than usual, the result of an incompatible planchet. Now flip it under the light. The luster isn't normal. It's softer. Almost like brushed silver, not chrome-like, not glossy. Think old silver spoon. That's your clue. Examine Washington's hair. Yes, the hair. The detail is unusually sharp, particularly on the curls near his neck. Why? Because it wasn't struck using a 1978 die. This was a throwback, likely a leftover die from years earlier, never meant to be used, and here's the biggest giveaway: no mint mark, nothing. Not a D. Not a P. Not even a ghostly smudge. Just a smooth, flat space where there should be a letter. Philadelphia coins from that era typically had no mint mark, but this is different. This isn't just a Philly coin. This is an error coin. It breaks several minting rules at once. It's like finding a ghost in a machine. A whisper from the past, frozen in metal, but the story doesn't end there. In 2023, a second example surfaced. This time from a flea market in Arizona. An elderly couple was selling off their old coin collection, unaware of the treasure hidden among them. A young collector, just 19 years old, spotted the strange edge and lack of mint mark. He paid $3. The coin was authenticated within days. Its value? Estimated between $900,000 and $1.20 million. Two known examples, possibly more out there, but every one of them, $1 million mystery. These coins don't look special to the untrained eye, they blend in like ordinary quarters. That's the real danger and the real thrill, because every time you open your change, every quarter you drop into a parking meter, you might be holding one of the rarest coins in American history. Start with every 1978 quarter you can get your hands on. Check the right side of the coin below. In God we trust. That's where the mint mark should be. Completely missing, not faded. That's your first red flag. Then, feel the rim. Is it slightly raised compared to other quarters? That could indicate a wrong planchet. And next, study the shine. If it doesn't reflect light like typical copper-nickel quarters. If it looks duller, like aged silver, don't ignore it. And finally, check for crisp hair detail on Washington's portrait. The better the strike, the more likely it's from a reused die. Collectors who know what to look for, they're already searching, and dealers are offering fortunes, sometimes even sight unseen, for high-resolution photos of these strange no-mint mark quarters. But be careful, there are fakes out there. Some people scratch off mint marks. Others plate quarters to mimic the silver look. That's why authentication is key. If you think you found one, don't clean it, don't alter it, and don't waste time. Get it into the hands of PCGS or NGC immediately, because if it's real, it could change your life forever. These coins weren't supposed to exist, they slipped through history like ghosts in the minting machine. They're not just coins. They're accidents of fate, whispers of the past, disguised as pocket change, and right now, one could be sitting in your drawer waiting, hidden in plain sight. This exact quarter, missing its mint mark, struck in error, and wrapped in mystery, could be worth over $1 million. So check your change, search every roll, because this once-in-a-lifetime treasure might already be in your hands.